the meeting.
All right.
And in the in-person meeting, which is fine if you want captions or whatever, please leave the audio so that there's not feedback. Thank you. We're ready. It should be on. Yep.
Okay. Wonderful. Good afternoon. I now call the University Senate to order. Wonderful to see everybody here in person, and an especially warm welcome to our new senators. Thank you for your service. Item 2 concerns administrative responses to the University Senate actions and is presented for information. Item 3 is a list of recent faculty, staff, and student deaths that have been sent for announcement to the Senate. I invite you to observe a moment of silence while I read the names.
This is what we need to consult parliamentarians. Ask why does the member rise? Why does the delegate rise?
Sorry, why do you rise? Why does the member rise?
I rise to seek recognition on the floor.
For what purpose?
Madam Chair, I've spoken to many senators who have experienced difficulty in getting approval to receive a Zoom link to participate in Senate meetings remotely. The current rules are too stringent to ensure robust participation. I request unanimous consent to amend the University Senate rules by inserting a clause after Article 1, Rules of the University Senate, Section 6, Meeting Procedures, Clause G. The inserted clause should read as follows. H, the Senate office shall, upon request of any senator and without requirement of justification, provide access to participate virtually for all meetings of the University Senate.
That would be new business, right?
So the rules can be amended if there is a vote by the Assembly to consider. Yes, it is. It can be considered. The first vote would, do they want to hear the motion?
So I'm told we would need a vote to hear the motion.
It's just, and I would go by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to hearing this motion?
Is there any objection to hearing this motion?
Okay. I object. Okay, so then that means we have to take the vote.
All right, so we'll have to take a vote.
Right, so a show of hands would work. So you could say those in favor.
So those in favor
Considering.
of considering the vote?
Considering the motion.
Considering the motion, show of hands for yes.
And then those opposed, online attendees.
And the online attendees.
It's very hard to see. It looks like I think
We have,
That's a majority.
and then those opposed?
the ayes have it,
So the ayes have it,
and then we can hear the motion.
and then we can hear the motion.
Yeah, I move to amend the University Senate rules by inserting Thank you. I move to amend the University Senate rules by inserting a clause after Article 1, Rules of the University Senate, Section 6, Meeting Procedures, Clause G. The inserted clause should read as follows. H, the University Senate shall, upon request, H, the Senate office shall, upon request of any senator and without requirement of justification, provide access to participate virtually for all meetings of the University Senate.
And then they can speak to their motion.
So I hear a motion and a second, so you can speak to the motion.
So the maker of the motion should speak to
The maker of the motion should speak to the motion.
Fantastic. I've heard from a number of senators who have had a misunderstanding between orientation and the first Senate meeting of how a Senate virtual link is sent, and believe that by ensuring all university senators are allowed Zoom access, we can maintain a more robust Senate.
I want to preface my comments by saying that these are trying times, and we all should be showing each other generosity and grace as we navigate truly treacherous terrain. Given how I have been treated this week, I am finding it exceedingly difficult to extend that to those who are supposed to be leading this body. I am here as an alternate. I fully intended to attend this meeting in person, but on Monday I learned about a death threat against a member of the Senate. So I requested a Zoom link and also urged that the Senate meeting be moved online. After all, only a tiny fraction of this body are aware of the death threat against our colleague, so most of us have not been able to make an informed decision about attending. I have been utterly stunned by the response to my request, as well as the response to others' requests. Not just that they were denied, but that the President's office broke their own policy and dug in their heels in this petty manner. This is an abuse of power. It doesn't reflect well on the President's office, on this body, or on this institution. When I was denied, the senator for whom I am subbing pointed out that the President's office, that they were breaking their own policy, which states, once you have identified your alternate will be added to the meeting, will be able to access the Zoom link without further special permission. The response from the President's office was, thank you for your response. We appreciate you following the procedure. We will make sure the form is updated with reference to the Zoom link so that there won't be a confusion in the future. They then edited the form on Tuesday and turned off version history. They changed the rules and are retroactively enforcing them while erasing history. I am baffled. This body voted last year to hold some meetings in person with the understanding that senators would be able to join remotely when needed. Yet this week, in addition to my own denial, the request of someone who teaches on the St. Paul campus right up until the meeting time, was also denied a link.
Excuse me, as the Senate Clerk, I just want to mention that your time is up. The 2 minutes have passed.
Please join me. Given this abuse of power, I ask that you all join me in extending generosity and grace to the members of this body by voting for the motion.
Thank you.
And then there's a check. How do I handle that?
Yeah. Open to debate now, the motion.
Jennifer Goodnow, Senator from Morris and past chair of the SCC. And since I objected, I feel like I should tell you why. And that is, it's more about the process. The Senate Consultative Committee is charged with managing the rules, the bylaws, and the Constitution. And it has broad representation of all the constituencies and is the body that deliberates things such as whether things are in person or not. And while senators do have the right to bring a motion, I think that I wanted to point out that our constitutional process puts this in the hands of the Senate Consultative Committee.
So we can move it to a vote unless there's more.
The problems here seems to be not the making of the rules to begin with, but the inconsistent application of them on the fly over the past few days. And that, as I understand it, is the reason why the addendum to the rules has been put forward, to ensure that there is a consistent rule to follow that is fair to everybody in the future. And that rule indicates that whatever your reason for needing to attend remotely, whether you're taken ill but you still want to attend, or you are teaching on the St. Paul campus and can't quite make it in time, whatever it is, you shouldn't have to justify yourself like a truant child. You should simply be able to do your job and attend the Senate meeting in whichever modality is appropriate for you that day.
So we can move to a vote. Requires a two-thirds majority. I look to the Senate staff on the best way to accomplish that count. The parliamentarian, I'm checking with the parliamentarian.
To amend the rules.
To amend the rules is a two-third vote per the parliamentarian. I'm getting confirmation over there.
I'm so sorry. So what about this one? Simple majority to.
Wait, please.
One moment.
We're
Hey,
checking.
I'm so sorry.
It is Article 1, Section 3.
Yep, thank you, we're looking.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go with the majority vote.
Okay, the parliamentarian amends that. It is a simple majority. How shall we best do that for the Senate staff?
So let's do a voice vote. If you can announce first, have everyone online unmute themselves before the vote.
Is that going to actually count for us? I don't think that's going to.
Or then we can do a show.
Just a show of hands might be more.
Yeah, I think
might be more-
a show of hands, I understand for the people online.
Okay, I have
So
a
if the
point of order, please.
People online can also put up a hand is helpful. So can I see a show of hands for folks in support of the motion?
I have a point of order, but that I've been trying to make. Okay, thank you. Several people came in a little bit late, and I think there's a lot of confusion as to what's happening because this happened so early. Are we able to get this, like what we're voting on in the agenda or in writing so we can read it through again?
Do you have it, can you email it to me or chat it?
If it's a change to the rules, it just feels kind of rushed to be voting on it right away. So I would just like to see it again or have it read one more time, please.
Do you want to, could we maybe read it one more time?
Yes, certainly. We're sending it by email as well. The motion is to amend the University Senate rules by inserting a clause after Article 1, Rules of the University Senate, Section 6, Meeting Procedures, Clause G. The inserted clause should read as follows. H, the Senate office shall, upon request of any senator and without requirement of justification, provide access to participant virtually for all meetings to the University Senate.
With that, I'll look for a show of hands for those in favor of the motion. Is that,
Okay, so those of you who are online in system campuses, just everyone keep their hands up for a moment because I need to look very closely and see those rooms, sorry. It looks pretty good.
okay, so with that, the motion.
It should ask for the negative.
uh,
Always ask for.
So a show of hands for those that oppose the motion.
It's clearly 2/3.
So
So it's clearly a majority.
clearly majority, yep. So with that, the motion passes. And the rules are amended. All right, moving on. Item 3 is a list of recent faculty, staff, and student deaths that have been sent for announcement to the Senate. I invite you to observe a moment of silence while I read the names. Kitty Bell, Thomas Bilder, Manjit Dot, John Foker, Bahrain Jabiri, Dan Gibson, Nini Gibson, Alan Goldman, Mark Gunderson, Terry Gustafson, Arnold Johnson, Michael Lakas, Michael Lauer, David Luthart, Sarah Mack, Barbara Martinson, Deborah Pearson, Jennifer Peterson, Timothy Sachs, Bonnie Semmelza, Aubrey Shao, Stephen Swanson, Stanley Thayer, Judith Younger. Students Easton Clevin, Aaron Lee, Lon Rosenfeld, Sharika Saruladan, and Ethan Tikalar. Item 4 is approval of minutes from the regular and special University Senate meetings on April 24th, 2025. Does anybody object to approving the minutes? Is that a hand on screen or? No. Okay, seeing no objections, the motion is approved by acclamation. Item 5 is my report. Before I start, I want to note that the next item on the agenda is questions to the president, and we'll be using a virtual queue for questions. Before I answer the questions, to add your name to the list, use the link in the agenda or the QR code on the screen and add your name and the information to the bottom. In order to assure that a variety of voices are represented, Amber will call on speakers based on their order of appearance and constituency, cycling through the 4 constituencies as is possible. People on Zoom may speak when their name is called. People in person should raise their hand when their name is called, and Senate staff will bring a microphone to you. Now I'm pleased to give you the first report of the academic year, so good afternoon, everyone. I'd first like to say how glad I am to see all of you here at today's meeting. As we kick off a new academic year, I would look forward to those of you working with those of you in the room as well as those joining us from our university locations across the University of Minnesota and by Zoom. I want to provide a brief report before you jump into the rest of today's meeting. In the face of a historic array of external pressures, we continue to fulfill our mission at the highest level. Our research and scholarship continue to improve lives and change the world. We provide an outstanding education to more students this year than ever before. Locally and across the state, our community partnerships continue to spread and deepen. We're on the eve of rolling out a strategic roadmap that will help us continue to build momentum. I'll say more about that in a moment. And I don't take any of this for granted. We live still in a time of tremendous uncertainty. Higher education continues to face threats on many fronts at many levels. And while we know that this year will bring more surprises and challenges along the way, in order to continue thriving, we have to stay true to our mission, and just as importantly, we need to work together to promote and defend the university. More than ever, we see the importance of strong partnership between faculty governance and university leadership. At its best, university governance brings together voices from across the university, faculty, staff, and students from all corners, departments, and units to dialogue respectively, debate together what will make our university better and stronger in spite of the challenges it may be facing. We should fully expect that this year too will bring another set of unprecedented challenges, and as we face those challenges, I ask that we continue to forge our path forward in a spirit of collaboration in the best interests of the university. Some updates, a few updates I'd like to share. First, I'm very happy to welcome our new Executive Vice President and Provost to her first University of Minnesota Senate meeting. In addition to her leadership roles at Syracuse, Ohio State, and Cornell, Provost Ritter brings a wealth of knowledge with her own democracy and citizenship in American politics and women's constitutional rights. Her research background and leadership are critical assets for the university in navigating the issues facing higher education. Welcome, Provost Ritter. We also welcomed 4 new regents to the university in August. The governor appointed 3 at-large positions, including a student regent, as well as District 5 position this summer. The new regents are Joel Bergstrom, Samuel Hines, Ellen Lugar, and Kosar Mohammed. We are very grateful for their time and their service on behalf of the university and thankful for the service of our Regent Emeriti. Other university updates include Chancellor Charles Nee's inauguration at the Duluth campus earlier this month. Chancellor Nees has jumped right into over the past year, and I've been glad to have him as a member of my cabinet and a co-chair of the university strategic roadmap. It was a great opportunity to celebrate his leadership and the Duluth campus. Scott Lanyon has agreed to serve as a special advisor to the provost for the St. Paul campus initiative this academic year, and I'm sure Provost Witter will likely say more about that, but we're glad to have Scott Lanyon in his role and follow up to his work on the St. Paul campus plan last year. Other updates, we've reached agreements with our Teamsters represented as well as with AFSCME employees, and we're pleased that those agreements with each group allow us all to support each other and our students and our work across the state of Minnesota in the times and uncertain budgets that we're currently facing. Since our last regular Senate meeting, the Board of Regents approved 3% raises and 1% set aside for market adjustments. These pay increases are now in effect and considered a priority in response to the Senate action and advocacy on the need to take care of our workforce. This summer, I began holding faculty forums on the Twin Cities campus, and I have to say it was just wonderful to see many of you there. I've appreciated both your questions as well as the feedback we've received. We've made changes to both the format of those events in response, and I will look forward to how we can continue to offer those support and resources, and I plan to continue doing those across the year. In addition to opening them up more broadly, I'm also, when I plan to visit other campuses across the system, host Hope Forums there, and Provost Ritter and I have started visits to the colleges and forums across those communities across the Twin Cities campus this fall. Some budget update. Last week, we presented the university's 6-year capital plan and 2026 state capital budget request to the Board of Regents. The capital plan reflects a new approach to addressing our critical need for funding to support the maintenance of our infrastructure. Starting with the FY26 budget, we will use $10 million in recurring O&M to borrow approximately $150 million. We'll repeat this every 2 years through 2034, providing us with $750 million to invest back in the most critical facility issues that have been plaguing the deferred maintenance on this campus for years. This funds allows us to finally rebuild a capital pipeline with purpose and predictability. It will enable us to address a number of our most significant challenges, not just patch them, and provide a respectful workplace for our faculty and our staff, as well as proper supporting facilities for our students. Importantly, as with our compensation increase for faculty and staff, this plan will allow us to continue to invest in our core mission, providing the facilities our faculty, students, and staff need to do their best work. We will still depend on partners in the state to help us address our capital needs. There are more needs than can be addressed with those funds, which is reflected in our capital budget request. Although we're deeply grateful to the state for its investment, we cannot guarantee how much of our funding request we will receive, and so it's important that we also start to define our own destiny through this new initiative of funding some capital renovations of our own. An update on enrollment. I'm pleased to say, thanks to the wonderful work of our faculty and staff, enrollment is up across the university on every single campus in both overall enrollment as well as in degree-seeking enrollment. We've engaged also in a university-wide enrollment planning process. We will be developing university-wide enrollment plans so that we can have a coordinated and comprehensive strategy across all of our campuses, college, and units. As a result of the planning process, each campus will receive a set of recommendations, opportunities in both recruitments and admissions, opportunities and retention, and program demand and academic offerings. Just a moment on the strategic roadmap that you'll hear more about. You'll hear more about this later today from co-chairs Duluth Chancellor Charles Nees and CSE Dean Andrew Aline. This plan has come together based on a lot of input and feedback from all of you and from your colleagues across the University of Minnesota. While many ideas have circulated around, there have been even been questions if this is the best time to launch a new strategic roadmap with headwinds that higher education is facing. I firmly believe, however, it's more important now than ever that we start to chart this course forward, and it also helps us make difficult decisions. Also, universities don't stand still, and our peers are not standing still, and we are setting priorities and advancing them. We're planning for the future of our learners and the country. This plan is based on the university's strengths, and over the past year while I've been your president, I've learned so many things about what our university does particularly well, and how that not only makes us one of the great universities in the country, but also how that allows us to serve our land-grant mission in Minnesota even better. While all of those things may be true, we're frankly a little humble still to talk about it. And while I'm not suggesting we swing entirely to the other end of the spectrum, I do want us to proudly discuss where we excel and chart that course forward. To that end, I'm excited to remind you about the next launch on October 9th. This event will be live streamed, and we invite everyone to join us on that live stream. This concludes my president's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, the first person in the queue is Ava Von Dasso.
Ava Fondasso, College of Liberal Arts. I regret I might have missed a few of those remarks because I was trying to download the app to enable me to get in the queue. It looks like I succeeded. I am going to pose a question on behalf of one of my constituents as follows. to the president. Can you explain why 1 month of faculty and staff raises was rescinded, effectively reducing the merit pool to 2.67%? Will faculty and staff ever receive that money, or is it being used to fund something that has not been disclosed?
So thank you, and I want to also note that I will get to your question that I heard from feedback from a lot of people that there's a preference that I take questions from the room first, which is why I'm exercising that prerogative first, because I feel like it's respectful for the people on the Zoom and in the room for me to discourse with you first, as opposed to just answering pre-submitted questions. And so that's the format that I'm using today. To answer your question, the university delayed merit increases in FY26 by 2 pay periods due to an unusually tight timeframe when the board approved the budget this year, inclusive of merit, and when all the payroll entries needed to be concluded. So in past years, I think there hasn't been so much of a question on whether we'd be able to do the merit or not. With this year's unprecedented budget issues, there was a lot more question about that, and therefore the time period for the HR folks to be able to update the entire system for everybody to receive merit appropriately, the timing change provided the staff that time. To ensure consistency across all employees, the same 2 pay period delay was then applied to merit increases in the fall as well. Offsetting this later implementation is also the fact that we made a really conscious decision in a year when many universities were giving no merit at all due to tight budgets, to provide the 3% and the 1%, partly in response to the strong feedback we received from this body and other committees on the need for workforce reinvestment. So we were able to deliver that strong merit increase and make the largest market adjustment pool in history. So I think the other part of your question is if we're going to make these salary increases retroactive, and the answer to that is no, and there's also no identified use for these funds. The budget is passed as it is in total. And I'm really pleased we were able to offer the 3% and the 1% merit increase, understanding the pressures on workforce compensation in past years. And we remain committed and indeed have in the budget, again, funds for workforce reinvestment in following years. And I'm really appreciative to the committees that have done all of the work on workforce reinvestment to date. Thank you for the question.
All right, the next person in the queue is Michael Galope. If you could raise your hand.
Thanks so much. Michael Galope, and CLA faculty senator. So I was the recipient of this aforementioned death threat. Sorry, it's kind of hard to talk about. It's been a very difficult few days, in addition to a lot of racist messaging from a self-declared Trump supporter who opposed my position on the recruitment of Border Patrol officers on campus. I want to say, first of all, many of the staff that I talked to were really great. Like HR staff were really responsive. I had great phone calls. I don't know if Greg Goldman is here, but he was really responsive, so I really appreciated that. But there is a major, major process issue when someone gets a death threat and they're a faculty member for doing their job. And it's that we could not get emergency security in our building from UMPD. Death threats against community members for doing their jobs seems like it should be the highest priority of what the administration tells UMPD to do. And it's not any individual's fault. I think it's a process problem. When you're getting a death threat, and I have a 5-year-old and a partner who also teaches here and a concerned mother, you're just panicking like, I don't want to be in my house right now. What am I supposed to do? This Turning Point event was happening on Monday. And you want a phone call telling you this is all taken care of, we're going to have your back. And that didn't come. I got instead an email form telling me to request event security, like if I were going to have a speaker hosted on campus, and that my event, I needed a chart string from our department to fund security against a death threat. And this is amidst all of our students and faculty emailing me completely freaked out that they may be targets. Also, our building is right next to Northrop where this event was. Every Palestine protest has had dozens of officers present, right? We had this at the ODI breakfast. But why, 4 days after I've been threatened with death for doing my job and speaking on matters of public concern, and this matter can be legally prosecuted as terrorism under Minnesota state law for threatening me with death because of my political opinions, why has it been impossible to get building security in my building 4 days later?
First of all, Mikey, thank you for the question, and I'm deeply sorry that this happened to you or that any threats are made against anybody in our community at any time. And I understand, I've also had death threats, and I understand how traumatic that is. And I'm really sorry, again, that you had to go through that. I am glad that we got you eventually to the right place, and I know at some point in that path that we were able to get you connected with security in the proper way. That's a different issue, but the security, to get you connected to the right security people to answer the questions that you had. I do understand that. So I want, unfortunately, I have to let people know that we take each of these death threats and every threat to anybody in our community, any group in our community, and these happen very commonly, unfortunately, across the university system. We have, and I'm glad we can improve, I hear you, in how we understand when a faculty or a staff or any group receives that. I hear you, we need to improve that process, and I'll take that feedback back to security and how we do it. But I do want to assure the community, most threats that happen across our community, and if I pick a given week, I could pick 4 or 5, you never hear about because we have a very good process in assessing their credibility, in assessing the actual risk to personnel or not. We have excellent security, we have excellent connections across the legal community and the federal agencies, and we take every single one of them very seriously, and we work to assess with those folks on how credible that is versus simply the saying of it. Now, we take every one of those very seriously, Michael, and again, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But I do want the community to understand that if we announced every one of those for every group, there are threats against particular types of people, there are threats against individuals, there are threats against speech on one side or the other side. Unfortunately, in our community and our society, very frequently, and we take every one of them seriously. We have a very systematic process towards that, but I really want to take that back to security and how we make it so when that happens to you, we can make sure that you get to the right person, right? Every one of those does not wind up with buildings locked down or individual security provided. It depends on the threat assessment done by the professionals who do this for a living, what our actions then are going forward. So thank you very much. One more question.
Next in line is Elizabeth Ambrose.
And maybe while that person is coming up, I just will say, I want you also to be assured that if we have a threat that either we don't know is credible yet or that is credible, the buildings will be closed and there will be security personnel there, and we do have the resources for those pieces.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Elizabeth Ambrose, professor of medicinal chemistry, College of Pharmacy. Some of us are very concerned about what's happening to the scientific research enterprise and the issues related to funding and support. I think we know a lot of what's been going on there. And so I was just wondering, how does that fit into the strategic plan going forward? I don't know if maybe you might get to that later on. But how does strengthening the research enterprise here at the university fit into that plan?
Well, fortunately, we'll have folks to walk that through a little bit later, so I won't give away a lot of the detail. But the strategic plan addresses our full set of mission of education, of research, and of outreach and service, certainly. And all of those we take very seriously. And they're all of those missions, there is a way to fulfill all of those missions through what I see the community work has been done to advance this plan. So, it's a difficult time for research funding, certainly. The federal priorities are shifting in many different ways, but we're also a comprehensive research university with a very diverse portfolio broadly, and a really good place to adapt to the time that we're in. We also have top faculty doing wonderful research who we think will continue to be relevant. And so there'll be more conversation on the strategic plan after this, but thank you so much for the question. Yeah. And with that, item 7 is the Provost's report, and I would now like to formally introduce you to Executive Vice President and Provost Gretchen Ritter. Provost Ritter, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I've been in the role for just shy of 8 weeks now. It's an incredible honor to be the provost of the Twin Cities campus and the chief academic officer for the university more broadly. In terms of what I've been doing since I got here, a big part of it has been getting to know the campus, spending a lot of time with people at events, at meetings, at forums. I've had an opportunity to interact with folks from dentistry, from education, human development, from the Hubbard School, from Humphrey, from the Office of Equity and Diversity, from design, and so on. I am planning to come to each school and college on this campus this fall, as well as to the other campuses in the next few months. In addition, I thought I would share with you some reflections. I actually prepared these for a report earlier this week about some of my observations about strengths and challenges, which have really fed into my own sense of priorities for the work that we do together. This is a place with unbelievable academic excellence across scholarship and teaching. You see it on all of the campuses. Just this week alone, we got news that our School of Nursing has been named number 8 in the country. I came out of a meeting earlier today with the accreditors for our landscape architecture program, and they said it's one of the best they've seen. I am grateful for the work that all of you do in support of our mission of the discovery and dissemination of knowledge and public engagement. It is also a place that, and this is certainly one of the things that attracted me, has such a kind of strong, palpable commitment to the state. It's expressed in so many different ways, and I am really pleased that that is part of our new strategic plan framework. And I think that this is a time, given all the challenges that we are facing, that we need to double down on those commitments, that we need to think about how do we renew and deepen the public's trust in us and our commitment to them. I also talked about being incredibly pleased by the leadership culture that I have been brought into, which is a culture that is engaged, which is a culture that is mission-driven. It's a culture that values diverse perspectives. You should see the arguments and discussions that fly around that room. And it is a culture that is about how do we support our faculty and our students? How do we meet the needs of the state? And in terms of areas of challenge and engagement, you just heard from the president, we've done really well on enrollment this year, but there are a lot of headwinds facing us. There is the enrollment cliff. There are all the pressures around recruiting international students. We need to engage more deeply in thinking about our enrollment strategies. We need to broaden our recruitment nationally. We need to think about how do we continue to recruit and meet the needs of all the communities within our state, and how do we be strategic in our recruitment internationally as well. The other areas that I talked about in terms of challenges and the work that we face together is I named 2 trust problems. We need to rebuild trust internally. We need to think together and work together on how to be collaborative around shared goals and mission. I know this has been a difficult time for the university. It's been a difficult time around the country in terms of trust and collaboration within universities. I will make my own commitment to being transparent, to never making promises that I don't think I can meet, to always listening to the perspectives of the members of our community, and to staying in dialogue with all of you on matters of importance. The other trust problem is external. We see a lot of indications that the broader public has questions about the value of universities. And we need to think about why that is and how we can help to rebuild that. And I am eager for conversations with all of you about that issue as well. And then the final thing that I talked about is the need to help open a path towards more significant long-term change in face of all the challenges that we have coming from the federal government, in face of some of these challenges that have to do with an erosion of public trust. The challenges that we're facing now are not going to go away no matter what the outcome of the next election is. So we have to think in a deeper way about how do we continue to do our work? How do we develop new models for scholarship? How do we continue to support the needs of the state? How do we do this in a way that is true to who we are and who we have been in the state? And I am confident from everything that I have seen here that we can do that together. And I look forward to an opportunity to learn more and to work with all of you on those goals and that mission. Thank you.
Item 8 is questions to the provost. Again, we will use the virtual queue after any questions. So please use the link on the agenda or the QR code on the screen to get in line for the question.
First person I have in the queue is David Brown. And David, I'm sorry, I don't know if yours was left over from the president or if yours is for the provost.
This was actually for the president. I'm yielding time to Professor Julie Olson from the dental school to ask a question.
If it's for the provost. Okay. Okay, but we're doing, if it's for the provost, we can do. No, okay. So then the first person in the queue is Ava Von Dassau.
In the minutes from the April 24th Senate meeting, former Provost Rachel Croson is reported to have said, quote, that the $5.5 million that had been earmarked for core curriculum revision support will now be redirected, end quote. The question I have is, what is being done with that $5.5 million? Inasmuch as it was intended to support the delivery of undergraduate curriculum, it should still be spent for that purpose. So, how about patching the holes the president's budget blew into the budgets of the colleges doing the bulk of undergraduate teaching?
So thank you for the question. In terms of budget priorities and how we're going to specify where funds are, we do need to continue to invest in undergraduate teaching. We do need to think about how do we meet the needs of our students. We need to think about, among other things, what the impact of AI is on the world that they are going into, and how we should be incorporating that into our own methods and approach. We need to think about how we can foster interdisciplinary collaboration in our teaching and how we can facilitate the adoption of pedagogies and practices that increase learning and student success. So to my mind, those are important commitments to keep. I think I did. To my mind, our funds that have been set aside for education should continue to be used for education.
Next in the queue is Michael Galope.
First of all, welcome, Provost Bitter. It is a fiery moment, and I guess things happened before you got here, as I'm sure you're well aware. So I'm going to bring up one of those things. There were a bunch of statements that were censored from our website in response to the Regent's resolution on institutional speech. This was an unpleasant moment. Being censored is a different kind of trauma than a death threat. But it's pretty awful, and it's still legally and in terms of academic freedom, we're still wrestling with it. I know that the Regents are reconsidering this resolution on their upcoming meeting in October. But right now, we have no policy. So we have no criteria. We don't really understand why certain things were taken down. And that's been a huge problem from a legal and First Amendment perspective. We've consulted with ACLU, FIRE, AUP, lots of flags all around this practice. Now, I want to just ask you a directed question here about it. Would you support a process for those of us who want to write collectively authored associational speech on Israel-Palestine and on the genocide in Gaza? Would you support a process that allows us to make these statements in compliance with university policy that are not claiming to be institutional speech, but are still on the topic of the genocide in Gaza, but are instead reflecting our expertise as faculty, but speaking in associational form, so speaking signed statements with disclaimers, speaking about the genocide in Gaza? Would you support a process where we can create compliance statements of that kind?
So here is my understanding of academic freedom and what it covers. And I'll take this as background to answer the question that you've asked. It includes the freedom for research in one's area, and that should not be interfered with, and that should be supported. And that any judgment of one's work or one's voice in that regard should be within one's discipline. It includes freedom in terms of curriculum and teaching, again, within one's discipline and expertise. It includes the ability to, as we are right here, members of an institution, to question and to hold to account us, as we're doing right now. It also includes the opportunity for faculty to speak extramurally on issues. I support the right of every faculty member to speak extramurally on issues. Whether you choose to do that individually, whether you choose to sign statements together, that is, of course, a right to support. I am also in agreement with the principles behind institutional neutrality, in that it is not appropriate, to my mind, to speak on behalf of the institution from an institutional set of resources, from institutional units, et cetera. I know to all of us, we understand some of the differences between programs and departments and the larger institution. I can tell you from having been in conversation with lots and lots of people externally, they don't. So I do think that that boundary is important. I also agree with institutional neutrality because I do think that I shouldn't set the terms of the conversation. I think the conversation should happen on its own robustly within the institution. I also want to come back to the concern that you raised about issues of it feeling like we don't have clear standards or policies around how the institutional statement policy is applied. I think that's a legitimate concern. And I am interested in trying to work with representatives of shared governance and others in trying to address that concern and coming back with standards and procedures.
Provost Ritter, respectfully, can you answer the question about whether or not you would support a process of revision so we can bring statements about the genocide in Gaza into compliance? I will also add that we have experts on Israel, Palestine, and human rights in the College of Liberal Arts in many of the programs that made these statements.
I support the right of individuals themselves or together signing a statement doing that. I do not support the idea of a unit, a department, or a program doing that.
Okay. Thank you, Provost Ritter. Sorry. Thank you, Provost Ritter, and thank you for the questions. Item 9 is the SCC Chair's Report. Professor Leo, please go ahead.
I'd rather be giving an engineering lecture, so. So, good afternoon and welcome to the University Senate meeting, the first one of the 2025-26 academic year. My name is Perry Leo. I'm a professor and department head in aerospace engineering and mechanics, and this year I'm chair of the FCC and the SCC, the Faculty Consultative Committee, and the Senate Consultative Committee. My email is phleo@umn.edu, so please feel free to contact me at any time, and I'm happy to talk to anybody in this group and beyond. As we've already heard, and there's a lot going on in higher education, and so I believe that having a strong and consistent voice for all the Senate groups represented here will be vital this year. My vice chair, Professor Tim Johnson from the Political Science Department, and I have spent time this summer meeting with, among others, people in the President's Office, the Executive Vice President for Finance, Provost Ritter, leadership of the AAUP, the new VP for Strategic Initiatives, Ryan Schmiesing, with the theme in all these meetings of building trust among the different parties after the last several difficult years we've had. As you can see from the agenda today, much of the conversation that Tim and I had, as well as in some of the early meetings of the FCC and SCC, have focused on providing input on the strategic plan, and the Senate will get a chance to weigh in on that in just a few minutes. The Senate Consultative Committee has also discussed, air quotes, minor changes to the Senate rules, and we've had robust conversations about making votes public and rules associated with extending time. What I've noticed is that nothing is minor these days, so not surprisingly, people had strong opinions on both sides of all the issues, so I expect discussion to continue, and I welcome that discussion. And honestly, I can argue either case most of the time, so they're not easy questions to answer. But I do want to recognize that we have to find a way to be fair to all the groups in the Senate, and that we can't favor tenured faculty over non-tenured faculty. We can't favor faculty over staff, P&A, or students. So we have to be respectful of what all of those groups want when we make these decisions, especially for the University Senate, this body. I apparently, and I would love seeing this on the agenda, have to talk again for my FCC report. So here I'll just say that I expect there will remain a focus on term and non-tenure track faculty, as well as on academic freedom, which encompasses not only the unit statement situation that we've already heard about, but also potentially new challenges over the next few years. Indeed, as everybody knows, the idea of shared governance itself is under attack in many states. So as I said at the beginning of my remarks, we have to have a strong, consistent voice to share what I think we all believe here, that higher education is a common good for all of society, and that the University of Minnesota is a shining star in the state. So thank you. And I'm happy to answer questions, I guess, too. Michael, you have a question for me?
I think Amber will call on people from the virtual queue using the same format as before.
So far, there are no questions in the queue for Perry, but I'll give it a second in case anyone's trying to get in.
All right, I'll be back, so.
I'll be back.
Okay, looks like no questions.
Okay, hearing no questions. Item 11 is an update on the strategic plan. Chancellor Charles Nees and Dean Andrew Oline are here to provide an update to the Senate. Here. There we go.
There's Andrew. Charles is joining.
Winging it in with a helmet in hand.
What?
Down here. And is Chancellor Nees online?
I am online. I'm here.
Can we make him bigger? There we go.
I'll spotlight him. Oh, perfect.
And then after their update, we'll use the same virtual queue for people to ask questions.
So are you going to drive the slides?
I'm not driving.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yep. So my pleasure to go ahead and be here with my colleague, Charles Nees, Chancellor Nees, to give you a little bit of an update on our, can everybody hear me? Yes. All right. Strategic plan. And this is a roadmap to where we're going. Forgive me, I just biked over here from Northrop, a little out of breath. I got to do a little more cardio. Really, for those, I want to start off with a fair bit of thanks. For those of you who have participated in this, thank you very much for your input. This is very much our plan, or our roadmap. A lot of us have had input into this in a variety of ways. The way we're going to do this is we're going to, rather than go back and forth, split in two. I'll do the first half, and then Charles will do the second half. So let me start off. Next slide, please. So what we want to do today is sort of review how we got to today, because I think that's very important. Sometimes you sort of see the outcome, and you participated in the process in pieces. Sometimes it's nice to lay out the process again so you knew where sort of all the pieces were. Share a little bit about what we were looking for when we started this journey. Now, December was when first discussions happened about how we do this, and we really started putting together the team January. And then highlight the next steps and what happens after this in terms of activity that will take place on campuses. Charles is going to do this second part, including reviewing sort of where we are on some of these strategic imperatives and some of the goals that we want to do. So next slide, please. So there was, even before the January, February timeframe, there was a lot of activity and effort trying to get all our ducks in a row, trying to find out personnel that would be appropriate to take a look at a system-wide strategic planning effort. And sort of we started off in January with monthly meetings. And the steering committee had representation from all campuses, had a representation from students, had representation from staff, from faculty. We had the able assistance of external consultants that helped with some fact-finding and information gathering. After that, there's a sort of, when you say is it forming, norming, storming, and performing, in sort of the phases that you go through in team building. Got through the getting to know each other and the norming part pretty quickly. And then we set out on a set of listening tours. Now, I see some people in the audience that I know I've seen in some of those listening tours. We had those across the system at all campuses. And the groups that were involved included university governance leads, such as folks here. We definitely had academic leaders, deans, research directors and leaders, alumni association and foundation development staff, facilities people, because that's really key in some of like our infrastructure piece, finance and budget leads. We also had a significant number of faculty themselves, both tenure track and non-tenure track faculty involved. And then, as we were doing those listening tours, that was one way of getting information. There was a survey. Now, many of you probably get a lot of surveys. This is called the Vision 2035 survey that went out in the early part of this year. It was sent to all faculty, staff, and students across the system, and we got about 8,000 responses, which is actually, when we talked to the consultants, they said that that was actually a pretty good response rate. It's pretty representative. Sorry, it is a very good response rate, and it gives you a representative enough sampling of the population that you can use the information accurately. Additionally, we created what we call toolkits for town halls, because the town halls were also another sort of broader engagement activity that we did. And so we created these toolkits, rolled them out across the campuses, and had people go ahead and implement these town halls at various locations on all 5 campuses. And then sort of towards the end of February, we really started having these campus-wide and unit-level town halls across the system, as opposed to sort of these listening tours, which were like bigger kind of all-calls type stuff. Next slide, please. Okay, come March-ish, spring break-ish, we finished up the what I call sort of more the in-person information gathering. And when you tally it all up, there's about 3,600 participants. Now, some people came to more than one, but even that, it's over 3,500, 3,600 people decided to take. These are usually like a couple hours out of their time to ideate, sit down, talk to their colleagues in groups that had sort of disparate responsibilities across the system, and really share, what do we think we would like to have going forward. I should back up and say the Vision 2035, that was, okay, suppose you're in 2035, looking back at 2030, what would you have liked to have said we got accomplished, right? Which was an interesting way to frame it. Moving into April now, we reviewed feedback from the listening tours, the town halls, and sort of all the surveys. It was a lot of information. It was a lot of data. And admittedly, it was a little challenging to sift through that data. We used some tools, people talk about AI, basically to go ahead and pull out themes that emerged from the data, and started to identify those for further review and discussion. And we'll get to a little bit like what we were looking for in those themes in a little bit. But this is the process that we're going through. Gather a bunch of data, synthesize it. We did several iterations on the information that was gathered, and then use that to help us guide looking for additional information. In May, in terms of sort of after we've gotten the initial sort of set of information and sort of rough vector, we had voice sessions with random sampling of faculty and staff to see if the initial directions that we were heading in actually made sense, or were we off base on something, okay? And this is system-wide. It wasn't just on one campus. We did a bunch of these to get sort of their feedback. At this time, a lot of the discussions, they started to gel, they started to come together, they started to emerge in terms of, what were potential priority, if this is a roadmap, signs that we want to follow on this roadmap. as far as priorities go. Next slide. So you've got something, that starts to paint a pretty good picture as you're refining. At that point in time, we're heading into the summer, and then we did additional engagement with internal, external groups to get feedback on the themes, as well as do we have the right priorities and feedback. And all right,
No,
all right,
just
all right.
give me a second.
Oh, you guys really put the speakers through a gauntlet here.
And that was your most critical part, and I muted you, Andrew. It's like, I'm joking.
Really, should I back up or keep going?
I think you can keep
going. Keep going. Apologies to those online. Survey says we're going to keep going. For those of you, am I okay now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just basically going through what was on the slides in a little bit more rich detail. That was all. So the folks that we heard from, yes, the FCC leadership, University System Council, Board of Regents, the deans on the Twin Cities campus, the deans on the Duluth campus, many academic leads, department heads. We got some really good feedback from some of our foundation folks and from some of our alums. These are folks that are outside the outside the academy sometimes, and they provided really good feedback as to, if you're heading in this direction, here's some things that you want to look out for, or here's some things that you might benefit from. That was really, really valuable, as well as President's Cabinet. And so we began drafting some of our plan imperatives, goals, initiatives, and I'll tell you the taxonomy that we use for these, what I call imperatives, goals, and initiatives in just a bit. In August, now we're moving into the academic term, and these things did get refined multiple times. I can tell you, and we sort of neck down, collapsed some, dropped some out, brought them back. It was a very dynamic process. Getting into the August timeframe, we shared a draft plan. Now we actually had something on paper. It was a draft, so maybe it wasn't all polished, but we wanted to get it into the hands of folks that could give us feedback relatively quickly. So we shared a draft plan of the core content with groups for feedback, and groups included the FCC and FCC leadership, the SEC, some student leadership and governance group leads to see what they thought, University System Council, again, the foundation alumni boards, because you're getting to the point where that feedback is really valuable, as well as some academic leads and the President's Cabinet. You may have seen a second survey that came out that took a look at this draft plan. How many people saw the survey, by the way? 1, 2, 3. I didn't say answer it, I said saw it. All right. Yeah, so maybe there's about 20% that put their hand up. Okay, so again, it went out to all faculty, staff, and students, and we got 5,000 responses. 5,000 was again a very, very good response. It wasn't as much as at sort of the front end. And in talking to folks that do these surveys, at the back end of the process, you tend to drop off a little bit in terms of response rate. People said I already gave you something at the front end. And the response demographics were actually very similar between the pre and post. We can tell you more about that if you want. We're just going through process right now. And in that survey also gave the opportunity to provide later stage feedback as to whether we're heading in the right direction. Next slide, please. So that leads us to today, right? What we are doing with this and where we headed all along, and my good friend and colleague, Charles, is going to tell a bit more about the details of this, is it was very, very important for us to build on our strengths. Okay, there are different ways you can go after a strategic plan, right? And we decided as a system that we were going to figure out what we do really well, what we excel in, what we differentiate from others, and lean into those areas, which is different from shoring up things that are not going that well and using a strategic plan to try and fix something that is not going well. That is a leadership and a strategy call, and that's what we sort of leaned into. And you can kind of sort of tell by some of the pictures there what we felt some of our strengths were. Next slide. So leaning into our strengths, this is what came out of that first 7,800 pieces of data off the survey, plus the 100 town halls with 3,600 participants. You look at all the information they put in there, and you sort of figure, okay, if you were to look for strengths in this, what clusters around strengths? Okay, and there are several things that clustered around strengths. We're really good at this for both our institution and our state. Right? So we're just reporting back what the university population sort of felt was something that we excel at. Right? We are very good as a state in terms of natural resources and commitment to a sustainable future. That came through really loud and clear. We are good as a state, very good in civic engagement and engagement with the arts, health and healthcare, our very strong economy and diversified economy, a high quality of life, robust partnerships with tribal nations, deep agricultural roots, and we are a state known for having an excellent University of Minnesota system. From the university side, next slide. Okay, we're a university that is known for interdisciplinary teaching, learning, and research. We are recognized for that. We are known for preparing a healthcare workforce, in particular for the state of Minnesota. Again, one of the things that will be touted a lot is 7 out of 10 healthcare professionals in the state of Minnesota are trained from the University of Minnesota system. We excel at community-engaged teaching and research. Right? We do a very good job, differentiated from other types of large public land grants, in how we engage with our communities. We are very strong in hands-on learning experiences. Our collections, archives, exhibitions, performances are definitely a strength. I happen to be a big fan of Arthur Conan Doyle. And so when I moved here, Sherlock Holmes, I was extremely excited to know that we have the best and preeminent Sherlock Holmes collection in the world. Right? We were known for having discoveries advancing human, environmental, plant, and animal health, fresh water, agricultural innovation. That goes along with the whole sort of taking care of the planet sustainability that the state is also known for. We are, it may not be as well known, but we are really well known for use and development of spatial mapping. Right? There are few institutions that can do GIS like the University of Minnesota can. There are very few, like I can't think of too many, really. We have a very robust startup culture. We're usually in the top 5 in startup creation, as universities go. And we have nationally ranked programs, so we're very strong across the board. So these are the things that we want to lean into as we develop our plan. Next slide, please. And Charles, is this where you take over or where I take over? I think this might be the last one.
You got this one yet before I take over.
I got this one. All right, cool. Taxonomy, all right? So you have a leadership, a person that studies leadership as one co-chair, and you have an engineer as another co-chair. You're going to get a lot of process flow and structure and organization to how we go about doing things. And so, you know, we figured we'd start with the big things, the big rocks. These are our strategic imperatives. And these are at the system level, and these are things that we really need to do to move our university system and our state forward, okay? Then, under each of these, think about these as bigger sort of goals, right? Strategic imperatives. We're going to have certain goals that we're trying to achieve, okay? And those goals may vary a little bit, campus to campus, okay? But they're, in general, those are the ones that we're going to go after. Under each of those are going to be initiatives. What we're going to talk about are some signature initiatives that we start off. These will actually evolve, and new initiatives will come on board as we go through the life cycle of this plan. Okay, so you're thinking about this in terms of resolution, broader brush strokes, finer brush strokes, very fine brush strokes. Okay, kind of more or less immutable over the course of the plan, some variability. These can actually develop, evolve as the plan goes. Right? There are a series of action teams that are working hard on many of these signature initiatives. Some of you may be on them. If so, thank you very much for your service. Each of the campuses and colleges are going to develop their own, or update, if they already have them, own strategic plans to align with this university roadmap, and identify initiatives that are specific to their own unit or campus, because we couldn't have, if we had 50 of these initiatives, it would just be too broad to make it a system-wide strategic plan. To be very clear, right, this gives us a vector, a gradient, a direction that we want to go in. This roadmap does. It is not prescriptive in that these are the only things we shall do. Far from it. I mean, the University of Minnesota system, it's a $5 billion entity. We do a lot, and we do it really, really well. Okay? This gives us a direction where we want to start focusing some of that stuff that may not have been as focused before. Okay? With that, I'm going to turn it over to my dear colleague, Charles. Take it away and show us what we have for some of the imperatives and goals.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andrew. And I don't know enough about control theory and all of those things that you manage, so I'm not going to be able to throw out theory. Like you threw out Tuckman, right? And so org theory, which I study, you threw out a little bit of Tuckman with forming, storming, and norming. So I was going to try to compliment you with some control theory, but I don't know it, so I'm not going to be able to do that. But I will go and take the lead that you've given with the structure of our plan. On the next slide, and we can jump right into the strategic imperatives, because I think Andrew did a great job of laying out how we structured this plan. And so all of that feedback in the process that he shared earlier, that we then put together and looked at the emerging themes, landed us on these 5 themes. And they've been massaged and tweaked, and feedback from the hundreds of people that have given feedback into the process to land us with these broad themes that are helping to give that roadmap, the direction for kind of the work that's going to happen underneath all of this. And so really quickly, I'll just walk through the 5 themes, and then what our plan is to go into each one of the themes and the goals. We're not going to get down into the initiatives today. As Andrew said, a lot of those signature initiatives are being developed by work groups. Some of them are tapping into work groups that we had already created, and many of you are already a part of, as we look at, for example, the role of AI and that work group and the report that they developed. So we're not going to get into those initiatives today, but know that that is kind of the next layer of this as we continue to move forward. Our big theme that really emerged and continues to resonate across the university, including in this last round of surveys that we did, is that whole notion of the work we do as a university, the mission work that we do around preparing our graduate and undergraduate scholars to really be engaged and civic-minded in the work that they do and the career preparation that they can go out and continue to be active in our state, nation, and world. And that really continued to emerge in a lot of the themes that we did, and really seems to resonate a lot as we continue to do survey and get feedback from you all. The other one that came through was, and part of the reason why it's important for us to do this strategic plan is we know that so much is shifting. And as we want to kind of define our narrative and our role in that shifting landscape of higher education, it's going to be really important for us to think about how we look at and innovate the future of learning and the role that we will play and leading that, not just across Minnesota, but really leading that across the nation. We also really thought a lot about our sense of place in Minnesota and our opportunity to be connected to that rich asset that Andrew talked about that is all of the wonder that is happening within Minnesota itself. And so imperative number 3 was looking at how we as the public university in the state really serve those communities through the arts, through health, not just healthcare, but health as well, looking at public health and those things that we do from a preventative and from a recreation wellness standpoint, looking at how we support our communities and healthy economies, as well as looking at the way that we support culture and identity. And so all of that was a big part of that theme and the way that we truly partner with the state of Minnesota. The 4th one is looking at how we lead in discovery and some of the amazing work that we do on that front. Again, as Andrew said, this isn't everything we do in that space of discovery, but this is kind of, as we look forward, these were the areas that really kind of pulled out of some of both the input that we received as well as the feedback we received as we looked at some of our external partners. And so looking at the strength that we have as a university around sustainable solutions and improving the environment, and then the whole idea of that One Health concept and really looking at animal health, plant health, forest health, agricultural health, as well as human health. And a lot of that really emerged then and became the focus of imperative number 4. And then finally, really thinking about how we do imperatives 1, 2, 3, and 4 is making sure that we are securing that world-class university by strategically investing both in our people, but also in our operations and our facilities to make sure that we are continuing to develop the talent here at the University of Minnesota to support this great work, while simultaneously thinking about different ways that we operationalize and improve the facilities. On the next slide, we'll do a little bit deeper dive into imperative number 1 around that student focus. And our first goal that came out of that was how we help and support our undergraduate and graduate scholars as they graduate from our institutions to really be prepared and ready to engage in the diverse democracy that is our state and nation. We also looked at the ways that we are providing some of these applied learning opportunities, what we talk here about as these experiential learning moments, and actually immersing them into the educational programs so that it becomes unavoidable for an undergraduate or graduate scholar to have one of these experiences. It's not meant to be an add-on. It is meant to be connected to and part of the learning that our undergraduate and graduate scholars go through. We also talked a lot about how we operate as a University of Minnesota and the role of having 5 campuses to think about ways that we support the resources and the opportunities that exist across all 5 of our campuses, and that is an opportunity for us to really think about the ways we support the scholars on our institutions and their success so that they have opportunities, make choices, and lean into the strength that is across the University of Minnesota. And lastly, our last goal in this one is thinking about how we really address the mental health and well-being of our scholars, and also with a primary focus on making sure we're addressing some of the food scarcity needs that our students have been reporting and making sure that they have access and they are food secure so that they can thrive and contribute to their academic experience. And so that became the final goal in those 4 goals. As was mentioned now, underneath each one of these goals will be signature initiatives, as well as opportunities for colleges and campuses to be thinking about how they are contributing to these goals, which then roll into the larger imperative. So that is imperative number 1. Going on to imperative number 2. This is where we really think about the fact that the world of learning and how we deliver our educational opportunities for our scholars, we need to start thinking about that in ways that we can be leading in the nation in that. And that's where we began thinking about how we look at some of the creation of problem-based academic programs and interdisciplinary learning, some great work that's being done at the University of Minnesota Rochester in this space. And so really looking at how do we look into and understand and learn from that. We're looking at a hub that really allows us to support lifelong learners from across the state of Minnesota, as we're looking at different entry points for people back into their educational goals It could be somebody who is having a career change because the role that they played no longer is contributing in the workforce in the way that they wanted to, and so they need to re-enter our educational experiences. So how do we create those hubs and those opportunities for them to be engaged and be able to tap into some of the strengths, again, of the University of Minnesota? One of our big strengths, and this is an area where we really kind of are already doing some great work, and we also had a task force work group that focused on AI and the role of AI across the University of Minnesota. We're really going to lean into a lot of the recommendations that came out of that work, but it was an opportunity for us to say, how do we help all of our graduate and undergraduate scholars learn and navigate the tools of AI while at the same time making sure that our workforce on campus itself has those skills and those abilities to know how to tap into and lean into some of the emergent technologies and things that are happening in the AI space. And finally, the last piece that we really began to think about is how do we look at some of the emerging realities and opportunities that meet learners where they are, and the way that we can be thinking about some of our pedagogical practices and approaches, and really looking at some of the opportunities for teaching and learning development, and how do we begin thinking about the learners and the different learners that are coming into our campuses. So this is really an opportunity for us to be down that leading edge of the way that we deliver the amazing educational experiences that we do at the University of Minnesota. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, imperative number 3 is really partnering with the state of Minnesota and thinking about the opportunities for us to strengthen some of those partnerships. The first one is the role of art and design in really helping us to facilitate a knowledge and understanding around creativity and the role that that plays in health and well-being and optimism, and so as well as compassion for one another. We're going to be looking at how we support the economic development of the state of Minnesota, particularly as we think about workforce development and some of the ways that we are preparing our scholars for the future careers and some of the workforce needs that exist in Minnesota. That is a big part that we are partnering with the state around. One of the areas that we're constantly looking at is how do we provide the healthcare workforce that is going to address some of the ongoing gaps in healthcare that exist in the state, particularly in rural Minnesota. And we're doing a lot of great work, particularly with the development of the med school in St. Cloud and some of the rural work that we're doing up here in Duluth in medical education. So really thinking about our opportunities there to do that. And as was mentioned earlier by the provost, our nursing program ranked 8th in the nation. How do we think about that and the opportunity for us to really lean into that strength and thinking about how we can address some of the needs in rural Minnesota? We're looking at how we do database decision-making and solving. As Andrew mentioned, we've got a great resource in the University of Minnesota around some of our geospatial work that we do, and it is used across all disciplines in the University of Minnesota currently. How do we really think about that as one of the technologies and continue to lead nationally in that space? And then one of the other big commitments that we have as the University of Minnesota, but always an opportunity for us to strengthen and think about how we approach this work and stronger partnerships, is working with our tribal nations and our indigenous communities to make sure that we are partnering with and helping to support kind of the collective work that's done there, as well as learning from the knowledge and wisdom that a lot of our tribal leaders bring into the conversations, and the opportunities for really to learn from and embrace the wisdom that exists within those communities. Moving on to number 4, this is where we really look at kind of the discovery areas that we have. Again, this isn't meant to be an exhaustive list of where we're going to continue to do research and discovery, but this is where, again, the opportunity for us from an interdisciplinary way to really look at being a healthy planet and the opportunities there, whether that's around agriculture, whether that's around fresh water, whether that's around the minerals that are in our land. How do we do that and understand the way that we support our natural resources, but think about the role that they also play in our lives? We're looking at, again, as I mentioned, healthcare But this one includes both health, which is that preventative care and a lot of the great work that we're doing in public health, as well as the opportunity for us to think about how we expand the healthcare that we deliver to the state. And as was mentioned earlier, 70% of all clinicians are educated in the University of Minnesota, but really we know that the opportunity for us to bring more of that, particularly into rural Minnesota, is going to be critical. We've also talked a lot in the past about that One Health approach, and this is where we're looking at that larger ecosystem of people, animals, plants, and agriculture, and how do we work collectively to really move that forward. And then lastly, thinking about some of the leading research that we do in the space of artificial intelligence and our opportunity to not just use it, but really to be on the cutting edge and advancing that research and the next iteration of what's going on in that space. And then our last goal is, again, wanting to make sure that as we think, or our last imperative, imperative number 5, is how we develop the infrastructure that we're going to need, as well as the human resources and human capacity we're going to need to deliver on all of those other imperatives. And so really looking at how we recruit the talent and retain the talent, how we help support the ongoing professional development of the talent that we have at the University of Minnesota across all of our campuses, looking at our buildings and how we are really investing in the opportunity for us to develop and modernize some of our infrastructure needs there, as well as how we modernize some of our operations that happen within those buildings. So that third goal is really both the buildings themselves, but actually the way that we work and function and operationalize within those spaces. And then the last one is, again, we've gotten lots of feedback over the years that we've neglected the work at the St. Paul campus. And so it became really important for us to just put that stake down and say, we're going to invest in the St. Paul campus and make sure that that is a critical way that we continue to develop and move forward as the University of Minnesota. That was a lot. Sorry, but I wanted to run through all of those for you. We are now in the areas of finalizing language. The themes around the imperatives are pretty rock solid through the feedback that we've received and through some of the external feedback that we received. It's really developing and finalizing some of the language around the initiatives. Simultaneously with all of this, we're looking at a communication plan and a messaging plan that we'll be rolling out as part of it. We've been updating the regents along the way, but we are going to get to the final approval of the regents by the December board meeting around the imperatives and goals, and that's what we'll be presenting to them. And then we'll continue to develop the action teams that will help deliver on those signature strategic initiatives. And that will then also set the phase for us to be able to go to each of the campuses and all of the colleges and other units within the University of Minnesota to help with their roadmap development and how they create those initiatives that all ladder into the larger University of Minnesota plan. So super excited about this roadmap, and thank you again for the opportunity to present it all to you.
So, yeah, we'll now be open for discussion, and we can use the virtual queue as we have before. And I want to thank both the Chancellor and the Dean, as well as the steering committee, and all of you that participated in this process. And so now I think the presenters are open for questions.
Also, a big shout out to Brianna and to Ryan. I know he's hiding in the back there, but I mean, Charles and I, we can get our eye taken off the ball day to day on certain things just because there's a lot of stuff that comes in. But having folks like Brianna and Ryan here have been invaluable in this process to come up with something that is this comprehensive and cohesive. So kudos to them as well, too.
Okay, first in the queue is Ava Von Dasso.
So why couldn't you have sent us this PowerPoint in advance with the Senate agenda so that we could have used this time to discuss it? We could have read it in advance much faster, and we could have consulted with our colleagues, which is what we're supposed to do as senators. As for the survey, I didn't remember taking those surveys because Until they got to the pertinent slide.
is powered off.
Is it on? There, is it on? Yeah, okay. So a survey, sorry about that. That's no way to invite participation. You present a bunch of multiple choice options and we get to check boxes. You don't know what I or anybody else thinks on that basis. So, if this is our only opportunity to really participate, now we don't have the time left because you spent the time presenting us a PowerPoint we should have been able to read in advance. And as for the strategic choice to work only on our strengths and ignore our weaknesses and not shore those up, well, if my left leg is weak, then it doesn't make sense to work only on my right leg. I'm not going to be able to hasten across the Mississippi River between the East Bank and the West Bank on one leg very well. So I'm not persuaded that that is a viable strategic choice. But back to the starting point, why couldn't you have given us this PowerPoint in advance? We could have read through it, and then we could have had a real discussion here during the past 45 minutes.
And we haven't practiced how we're going to do the response. I don't know. Charles, do you want to tag team? I'll do one, you do one. I'll do one, you do one. And then you can
That's
add
great.
it. All right. I can start off with the why not. And, perfectly valid point. The rationale comes from the experience over the last 10 months of walking through the plan. In our experience, we've found that when we go to audiences such as yourselves and others, it really helps to talk through how we got to some of the decisions we got to in terms of the overall process. In the past, when we've presented just the end result or done sort of the here's the document, let's talk about it, there's a lot of sort of confusion about how we got to where we were. And so Charles and I have done this a lot, right? We've figured it's best to actually walk people through and then go ahead and find the discussion point, because we would just circle and circle and circle around if we didn't do that. So to answer your first question, it was based on our own personal experience delivering this over the last 4 or 5 months.
When does this body get to have a discussion?
So questions are open right now. So are we finished with that question, or do you have any further answers?
No, that was the answer. I don't know if Charles wanted to take the second.
Charles, do you want to answer anything with that, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other point that was asked was why use an asset approach to a strategic plan? It is a way to kind of build a plan that builds upon your assets and continues to develop those assets and say, these are the spaces that we're going to lean into. So an asset approach is actually a strategic way that a lot of individual organizations, I should say, are looking at how they develop plans. It doesn't mean that they don't continue to work on those areas of growth and improvement, but as far as the prioritization of kind of the current focus in area, using an asset-based approach has proven to be a good strategic way to move forward. So that's why we embrace that approach.
All right, next we have an online question. This is from a P&A member, Deirdre Upp.
Thank you very much. I can tell a lot of work went into this, and I very much appreciate that. I understand.
All right, Deirdre, just a second. There's a point of order.
I'm sorry. So my name was above hers on. Okay, my name was above hers on the list and it got crossed off. I never spoke.
Yeah, I am rotating through the constituency, so we've had a lot of faculty speak. I'm going to
No, that's fine,
give
but
it to
then
a P&A.
shouldn't my name be the next faculty name and not at the bottom of the list?
I don't know.
I just don't understand how this is working, and I don't think this procedure, which is new, was really explained. So I'm asking as a point of order.
Okay, I don't know why your name got in there that way. I can look through the.
So as chair, I'll suggest we'll take the current question and we'll let our staff
absolutely
look through what the procedure is here. And I do appreciate people's patience with as we're figuring out how to do questions and be back in person again, and how to figure out how to.
I am not
rotate through the
impatient. I am
constituency.
asking the question.
No, it's a fair question.
Yes,
and I
it is.
thank you
Thanks
for
so
your
much.
patience while we answer this question, and then we'll see where we can go from there.
Deirdre.
Thank you. My question is, when I was looking at what you outlined as our strengths for the University of Minnesota, in truth, only one of those, the spatial reasoning and GIS work, felt distinctly unique to the University of Minnesota. It felt like a number of those other items could very easily have been from almost any of our land-grant university research institution colleagues. So how can you help us at the university better understand what are our unique strengths? And I do concur that while research isn't, weaknesses are not necessarily part of this, it would be, it was an opportunity in all of the work that was done over the last year to really understand what people view as our weaknesses. And I do think that was a missed opportunity.
Thank you. Charles, you want to take that one first, and then I can follow on?
Sure, and I appreciate that lens about the opportunity for our weaknesses. I think the data that we collected hasn't been lost, right, and still provides a ground point for all of us to look at and think about. And so while we got input on some of those spaces, and I appreciate you highlighting that, it's still there. That hasn't been lost and can continue to give us a framework from how we move forward. I think part of what we tried to do is not just look at the assets and strengths of the University of Minnesota, but also those unique and distinctive assets that the state of Minnesota brings, and really thinking about how we link our sense of place, which is a theme that came up again and again, is the importance of our sense of place in Minnesota. And so part of what we tried to do is think about, and it may not have come up in the way that the slides are put together, but that interconnectedness between the strengths that we have and how those partner with the strengths of the state of Minnesota that I think make us distinctive, because the state of Minnesota has all of these resources that are part of the way that we partner. And so I think that's part of what may not have showed up when we have them as two separate slides, but really thinking about how those merge together. And the hope is that's what kind of is highlighted throughout the plan itself. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Deidre. You know, it's super interesting. I think, you know, when I hear that, boy, this could be anybody, a little bit of that is taking ourselves for granted. We may not realize how good we are in certain areas. Again, like on the health space, you go across the country, the Economic Development Agency for the US government said, this is the place to do healthcare technology, like medtech. There's no other place. You can't go to Boston, you can't go to San Francisco. We kind of sort of rule in that area. You couple that with the ability to do, like, you know, physician training. It is actually a unique strength. We just may not necessarily realize it because we're in it all the time. The same thing with sustainability. Everybody can do sustainability, not like Minnesota. No, right? I've been at multiple different institutions, on boards for many. The way that it cuts to the core, not just in the faculty, but in the staff, but in the legislators, but in the folks across the state, that we want to have clean rivers, we want to have clean lakes, we want to have a nice environment. It's part of who we are. We love the boundary waters, right? That's actually kind of sort of unique, right? I hear, yes, and so I really appreciate you giving that question, because you know, sometimes we have to actually almost explain to ourselves how unique we are and how strong we are in some of these areas. Be a little bit bolder in understanding how good we are.
And perhaps it's just a commentary on the choices, the word choices. Preparing the healthcare workforce doesn't tell me how the special things you just said, nor hands-on learning experiences. That doesn't make me think of some of the special things. And I know you're trying to distill a lot down into there, but that's maybe a point to consider is, are those statements conveying the message you want to convey? And right now I would say maybe they're not.
Great feedback.
As chair who takes some progress, I think we need to move along a little bit here. I will also say part of bringing this here today is these are not the final words for the way you will see a plan eventually rolled out. And some of these things that you might not know as strengths, as Dean Aline said, We're actually #1 and #3 in the country for sustainability research in fresh water, for example, and in sustainability around health. We're #1 in the Times Higher Ed for interdisciplinary research and education. So some of these things might not feel unique, and that's part of what we get to talk about here and be proud of as we move forward, is to resonate some of those pieces up. But certainly, every higher ed institution is going to talk about education and research and service, and those things are going to be general. And then within that, the opportunity, and I appreciate how much folks have spent time, is to resonate where are the places we're really distinct, and then how can this plan help sing and be proud about what those distinctions are so that the rest of the world knows about them. I'll also add, although the folks mentioned a strengths-based plan, there are certainly things in here that we're also shoring up. Deficits we know we have in, let's say, maintenance on the St. Paul campus, work we know we need to do in AI and education, we can do more. So it's a general approach, but there's obviously work in there on the weaknesses as well. I am told we are running over time, and so
The question is, do you want to
Yeah.
vote to extend time, or do we want to close this part of the meeting?
Oh, we have one more question. I did want to hear that, so we want to do one more question. And then I think we should, I think at that point we need to probably wrap up this part and get to the other section so that we don't run too far over time. So do you want to call the next question?
Yep, the next question is from a student member, Adebowale Adeyemi.
And can I ask, could you clarify for the question that was asked before, just you're going through different constituencies. So what I understand, and please correct me, is that you took a faculty question and then you took a staff question, and now you're taking a student question. And
That's not my question. I know, I appreciate it. My question wasn't that, it was why my name, which was on the list, got crossed off.
Penny, this is something I'll follow up with
So
you
we'll
later. It's
follow
an
up.
administrative question.
Okay. Okay. I also had that question to make sure everyone understood what we were doing with constituencies. So thank you so much. So the student question, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. First, I'm glad that this is not the final copy of the strategic plan, and a lot of edits and additions can still be made. And first, I'm in agreement with the goals that has been set for this strategic plan. And I'm going to try as much as possible to use a sandwich approach. And because I found some comments that, there were some comments you made that I was not really like in support of. And I felt, starting with the fact that this strategic plan is for first the benefit of students, and that students were put first. The first goal was about students. And that was a good point from the strategic plan. But there was a comment made about how you measure the quality of life. And 2 quality of life measures were mentioned. The first is mental health, food security, but another measure of quality of life was missing, and that is housing. Housing, yes. So recently the university made an adjustment to the requirement for university housing, and that sort of like increased the cost of housing for students. And I felt if it's possible for housing to be included, that would like make sure that students are recognized. And for the May consultation, there was a consultation that was made in May to identify the teams. I saw that faculty and staff were included in that consultation, but students were not included. Yes, so there was a consultation May 2025 on the slide. So if you could check.
Sorry, and I don't mean to quibble. Maybe we did not have on the slide everybody that was sent the survey, but it was sent to all faculty, staff, and students. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and there was a
everybody-
substantial students' response in the survey.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yes, so students were, the survey was sent to students, but when the teams were identified, there was a validation statement that you wrote where faculty and staff were included in that validation, but I didn't see students rating there.
Well, maybe I was, sorry, excellent point, and this is part of, again, how you communicate things, and we can always get better at communicating. If I forgot to mention the word students, there's nothing to read into that students were cut out. Maybe I was a little out of breath again, and I didn't say that particular word, but absolutely, students were involved, and the students are on the steering committee as well to get a lot of your activities. If I may, to go to the first question, were there others? Because as you said, we're kind of getting a little short on time.
Yeah, okay, so I have like two more.
So I
Mr.
think,
Davey,
But
Mr.
two more,
Davey,
but I can
your 2 minutes are up. Your
so
2
I think
minutes
we had
are
2
up.
minutes for each question. So,
Can you
but I
give me
do want
30
to give,
seconds?
I want to give,
30 seconds.
Yeah, that's.
so your 2 minutes is up, but Dean Aline can answer. There's another part to that question. If you can answer that question, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'll echo something that we've talked about a lot with President Cunningham. And again, it may be a result of, again, having somebody that studies sort of management, organizational behavior, and an engineer. One of the things as we go forward with some of these is we are going to, in terms of next steps, there are key performance indicators or metrics or something like that, things that we map against the goals so that we'll know whether or not we are actually achieving some of these things. And in the sort of like the student needs, there are many, many needs. Part of what we want to do strategically is to figure out like our resource set, like and how many resources we can map against meeting some of those. The idea of mental health and food seemed to come up top of mind for the feedback that we got from the students. And I will add, it was really reinforced on this post survey. Oh my goodness, it was a huge delta in terms of students saying, no, that's our number one versus staff and faculty. And so the strategy is deploy your resources against those key ones, right? Make progress. If we go ahead and completely solve that, okay, right? As our initiatives, that one is taken care of through, maybe it's through philanthropy, maybe it's through something else. Now we can go ahead and turn to number 3 on the list. And that may be exactly what you're talking about. If the students decide that's the one, that is number 3. There may be another one, I don't know. That's where we have to go ahead and do the data gathering to go ahead and make sure that we are actually solving the problems that are most relevant to our constituents. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the feedback. Very, very helpful. We're going to keep practicing as we go ahead and communicate this. Thank you. I don't know.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Exit stage left.
The president had to step out, so the vice chair is stepping in at this point. She asked me to let you know.
Nothing. Doesn't surprise me, so we just keep going. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 12, which concerns old business. There is no old business for the University Senate, so we'll move to new business. Item 13 concerns new business for the University Senate. Please note that any new business will be referred to committee unless special permission is granted by a 2/3 vote of those voting and present. Is there any new business?
All right, is this on? Yes. I would propose the following resolution. I assume this would be moved to the SCC for consideration unless the body wishes to vote right now. Whereas members of the university community have increasingly been targeted with violence, doxing, and assassination, be it resolved that the administration immediately develop, in consultation with shared governance bodies, a protocol for action to assure the safety of the persons targeted and their family, their classes, and their co-workers, and that this protocol be shared with the university community. Full stop. And I'll reread it if anybody wishes.
Second, and I move for a unanimous consent.
So, in order to consider a new motion, it must take a two-thirds, it must get a two-thirds vote to be considered.
Right.
Okay, so that's the first vote.
Okay. So Amber? Yes?
Just, it needs a two-thirds vote to be considered. If the two-thirds vote is not reached, it will be referred to SCC.
Right. So Amber, can we do a vote? We need a two-thirds?
So you can do it by, because you can at least see if you
Hands?
want to do it by show of hands.
It's up to the two of you.
Okay. Can we get a show of hands for those in favor of the motion?
Of considering.
Of considering the motion. The call is for consideration of the motion. The vote call is for considering the motion. Yes.
Consider it now.
Or refer it to the committee. Yeah.
So all in favor of considering it now, is that?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Considering it now. Okay.
I don't think it is either.
Just getting
It's
idea
chair's
of
call.
that.
It doesn't look like two-thirds to me, but it's your call.
Do you think it's two-thirds, or do you want to?
Well, let's go to a no.
Ask for the no vote.
Opposed?
So this is for the committee, it goes to committee?
Yes.
Yes.
It will go to committee. And
I don't think we have a two-thirds.
No.
So they'll go to committee.
Shall I send it to you?
Yes, please, thank you.
Please, send it down.
Okay.
Okay. Any further new business? Seeing none, I conclude this concludes the meeting, and seeing no further business, we're adjourned.
And then the faculty senate.
Faculty Senate will convene immediately. Immediately,
Sorry, is it
we'll
helping
quit.
you for me to?
No, it's good.
I've got used to telling the president, like, now we move to the next thing. Now you gotta call the next meeting.
She was
No, it's good.
down there because there wasn't enough.
Yeah.
But, right, but I think she was consulting.
You know, I just finished 6 years on judicial committee. I had Nicole tell me everything, because she's the lawyer for the committee. She would just lean over and say, no, now you know.
Yeah, I already have a plan to solve it, but so, thank you, yes. Do I lose you? I wrote it all out right here. I was hoping we wouldn't have to use a form to go through, but I think we'll have to because it's just, like when you fill out a Google form, it populates to a spreadsheet, so it takes a little bit longer, but it'll come in one on one.
Of immediacy.
All right, everyone, we're going to call the next meeting to order. I'll let the chair do that.
I now call this meeting of the Faculty Senate to order. Item 2 concerns administrative responses to Faculty Senate actions and is presented for information. I encourage you all to read it. Item 3 is approval of minutes of the Faculty Senate from the April 24th, 2025 meeting. Does anyone object to approving these minutes? In that case, seeing none, the motion is approved by acclamation. The second, next item is approval of the minutes for the Twin Cities Faculty Delegation meeting of May 6th. Does anyone object to approving these minutes? If not, we approve those by acclamation. Item 5 is the FCC's chair's report. Professor Perry Leo will give this, and I expect you to ask him questions this time.
All right, hello again. I did want to follow up on some of my remarks from earlier that are more focused on faculty issues. As I mentioned, 2 issues that I know will be coming up this year are academic freedom with respect to unit statements and term and non-tenure track faculty. If you recall, as part of the first issue, the former provost, tasked a group to look at administrative hiring. That report is now public. Myself, Provost Ritter, and Eric Van Wyk, the chair of the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee, had a meeting about that report, and I believe we identified important issues that remain to be addressed and expressed to Provost Ritter the need to continue to move forward on these issues. And I think we heard earlier today that Provost Ritter is certainly willing to engage and do so. Also, if you recall, last year we had both the Academic Freedom and Tenure Task Force report on protections for term faculty, as well as a TFAPS report on term faculty. And I apologize, I don't remember what TFAPS stands for. So if you're curious, Amber hopefully knows. The former, the AF&T report, was tabled and will be discussed again at a future meeting, while the latter report, the TFAPS report, was endorsed by the Senate. Especially given the budgetary uncertainty this year and potentially in future years, it's really important to me that we move forward on codifying protection for non-tenure track faculty. I don't know that we can do everything that everybody wants, but I think it is critical that we do something. I don't think we can wait, so I think that's a key thing for me. Finally, as we've talked about and just seen, we're all aware of stories about faculty being fired or otherwise punished for social media comments made in the classroom, and so on. There are attacks on free speech and academic freedom all around us, and we meet here today knowing that these comments readily turn to threats. And I thank Michael for coming today, and I really appreciate that you did. And I also welcome the resolution that was just proposed. This is something we just discussed in our FCC meeting prior to this one, and it's something that we will fast track because I think we do need to know what the university does to help those who are threatened. I want to also say that as someone who's had many discussions with President Cunningham, Provost Ritter, and others in administration, I know they share concerns about the current environment and will do what they can to protect the University of Minnesota. Now, that's not to say that I agree with them on every decision, because I certainly don't, but I do trust that they have the right heart for doing the things that need to be done for this university. And I think we all need to recognize that they have a bunch of different pressures on them that we as faculty don't have. And so I am fortunate to get a chance to talk to them, and I do believe they have our interests in mind with everything that they do. And I think given that, this body can and must help them do the things that we need to do as a university. But even the president and provost, they don't have the power to fix this, to fix all these issues unilaterally. So we have to consider what we need to do to protect our ability to teach and do research. And we have to do that in ways that resonate not only with each other, but with the broader world around us. It's important that we get the public on our side in the things that we do. And that concludes my report. So I am happy, in fact, to answer questions.
All right, the first person in the queue is Kathy Quick.
I can't see. Oh, there.
Thank you. Is this on? My name is Kathy Quick, and this is going to sound like a deeply existential question, which maybe it is, and my question is, why are we here? And those of you who know me know that I'm not typically a despondent person, But I'm feeling some despondence because I'm feeling some disorientation. And I'm bringing this to you as our chair, not because this rests on you, but because as a body, I think this is a question that we need to reckon with in a very serious way. My scholarship, my teaching, my service, my whole life is about bringing diverse groups of people together to work on complex public problems and to work through those deliberatively. I take very seriously my responsibility as a senator to consult with people whom I represent as an elected member of this body. I have no idea what we were doing for the last hour of that last meeting. It was not clear to me. Is this informing us? Is this consultative? It is not genuinely consultative. It cannot possibly be claimed to have been consultative. We didn't get those documents in time to talk with our constituents. There's no clarity that that will be coming back to us. It is not clear to me at the moment what the actual purview of this body is. And I would just ask you as our chair to persistently stand up for that.
That's fair. And I think, you know, I've heard the strategic plan thing maybe 5 times now. And yeah, I think that sharing some information in advance would be useful for all of us. So I will certainly take that to heart.
Next person in the queue is Shanna Waters.
That light is something.
So last year, I have a follow-up question about possibly where in the regents' minds, if you have any insights to that, as to when we had voted down the core curriculum and then the president and the provost went to the regents and basically said that that we were not doing our jobs. I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
Yep.
But that we were not doing our jobs and that maybe they should be given some level of power. That's how I read it when I watched the entire regents meeting. And so my concern is that what are we doing as faculty senate to ensure that we make it really crystal clear where our responsibilities lie and where administrative responsibilities lie. We're supposed to be in charge of the academics. And so I would just ask you, did you watch that? Do you have insights on how we can maybe discuss and have open conversations with the administration to ensure that the power that we do have, we recognize as being our power, and the power that the administration has, we can recognize their power. And so I don't want something like that to happen again because I felt very disrespected. And I would just say that I don't think that was necessarily their intent. And you may not have been disrespected if you watched the regents meeting, but if you haven't, I strongly recommend, regardless of what side you voted on, to go and watch it and then tell me, if you see me, did you feel the same way I did? And that's my 2 minutes. Can you give me your insights?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I was, I think, at that regent meeting or watched it on the YouTube channel. So that came, if I remember, like the week of the second Senate meeting for the core curriculum. There were a lot of strong feelings going around from the provost and president and the vice provost for undergraduate education. There were a lot of strong feelings going around with them because they had spent so many years doing the core curriculum. It got voted down in a fair process, and I think those strong feelings remained, and I think those strong feelings were shared with the regents and kind of transferred to the regents. Since that meeting, we had, different meetings with regents and some opportunity to meet with them. They, I do not think, have any interest in touching the faculty's power of the curriculum. So, I don't disagree that meeting seemed a bit disrespectful, but I think that was just the heat of the moment. And in calmer times after that meeting, I have sensed no effort by the regents to take away the power over the curriculum from the faculty. Yep.
I think we're going to take one more question. Is that right, Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes, one more.
Okay, so next in line is Penny Edgell.
Thanks, I need the form work this time, so that's good. Yes, I will. So thanks so much for your leadership. I just want to emphasize a couple things that were said earlier. One is I think there are a couple of separate issues here, and I think it's important they be kept separate. So one is gaining some clarity about this question of faculty versus administrative responsibility, not only for curriculum, but for other kinds of decisions. I think the curriculum is one area where it is really clear. It's spelled out really clearly. But I think that's a separate but related to the question of just communication about what we're supposed to be doing in meetings, like with particular items. I mean, items that are for information, items that are for discussion, items where we are actually supposed to give input on a process where we can have some impact because the decision making is still unfolding. It was unclear to me with this presentation even, was this literally not just what we were supposed to do here, which I think was a really fair question, but also like, it sounded like, well, basically it's set now, but some details are still being worked on, which is fine. I mean, we can have input at different points in the process, but even that, like what input was being solicited wasn't even clear. So, and I think I've got a couple seconds left here. My strong urging to you as the FCC chair is that, it's really important that the University Senate meeting and the Faculty Senate meeting not be turned into a form of simple delivery of presentations from the administration to the senators who are supposed to simply sit here. There are other ways to deliver information, right? And there are other forums that are appropriate for that. I saw this happen in the Liberal Arts College several years ago when there was a shift from a strong, robust assembly to simply a meeting of directors where the dean showed up, and I liked this dean, I worked with this dean. They just showed up and kind of gave information about various things that was happening. Maybe we need another forum for that, that's just an informational forum, but this isn't it.
Perfectly fair. Like I said, this is about the 5th time I've heard it, and those 5 times it was 45 minutes of PowerPoint and, a much shorter time of discussion. And I agree with you that is not the ideal way to present a strategic plan and to try to get feedback. And I hope that in future meetings, we actually have resolutions on some of the things I talked about, some of the discussion of academic freedom that is more discussion forward and less presentation forward.
Okay. I want to thank my fellow senators for engaging in a robust discussion. That's my goal as vice chair, is to encourage that. Item 7 concerns old business. There is no old business. Item 8 concerns new business for the Faculty Senate. Please note that any new business will be referred to committee unless special permission is granted by a 2/3 vote of voting present. Is there any new business? I guess not. If there is no further business, this concludes our meeting. Seeing no further business, we're adjourned. Thank you. How do we do?
Well, you did.